Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams is here and Bob Stewart's there. Bob, how's it going today?
Chad, I'm ready to institute a new rule. Now,
Okay.
we don't have many rules around here, by the way. There's very few rules.
Wait, do we have any rules around
No
here?
rules. I'm going to do rule number one. I'm so jealous. I'm telling you right now, I'm so jealous. This is time 7,385. You got it. Everybody can't see. Our guest can see. He's waving the book around. Chad gets all the books. He must have one of the most beautiful bookshelves in podcasting history because we've had a lot of great guests, some really amazing books. You have them all.
Yes. It's the price to get on the Win, Make, Give podcast. If you have a book, you must send me a copy. So, and this one, Bob, I know our audience can't see it, yet if I open up this book, it's even in slime.
Get out. I'm gonna have to reconsider like my entire life because my wife would tell you I don't want to plan, Chad. I don't have any intention to plan. I'm not a planner. You do all the planning for all the episodes, so I guess it makes sense that you get the books. But I'm thinking about just becoming a different human.
Bob, here's the deal, and I'm going to say it here on this episode. So, episode Win, Make, Give, season 4, episode whatever number this ends up being. Bob, write it down. If something happens to me,
I get the books.
You get every book that relates to a podcast guest.
All right.
I'll leave them in the will to you. If we move to Italy and I have to get rid of all the books, I will ship you every podcast related book so you can have
when's your birthday? I'm sending you a birthday card. Ignore the powder that falls out of the birthday card. It's totally fine. It won't hurt you at all.
Got it. It was just baking powder. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I will remember no birthday gift from Bob. Hey, but if you promise me that birthday card, Bob, I probably will see it in about 3 years. Isn't that what I found with Kevin Kaufman when you?
Yeah. My stuff gets lost in the mail for sure.
Yeah, lost in the mail. All right,
Bob. We have a great guest. I'm excited.
We have a book, right? So let's bring our guest on. Stephanie Chung, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. We're so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. And what I'm getting out of this whole conversation is I need to send Bob a book.
No. It's specifically in the show request that Bob doesn't get a book.
That lines up. I believe that you have that somewhere telling them, do not send more than one. That makes a lot of sense now.
Well, you're on the other side of the country. It's too far to send them in both directions.
Stephanie, hold on, Chad. Because normally Chad takes this job, but because he gets all the books, I'm going to take this part of the job. Do me a favor, Stephanie. We don't read bios around here. Chad and I have both read yours, but it's much more fun to, instead of reading it off a piece of paper, to have you tell us who is Stephanie Chung. So do me a favor. Can you introduce yourself to the audience in whatever way you feel most comfortable?
Absolutely. Happy to do that. So thanks again for having me here, guys. Probably the best way to introduce myself is I always want to give credit where credit is due. So I am an aviation executive. I've been in aviation for about 40 years. I started off as a military brat. So my dad was a master sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. So I literally grew up hearing planes take off and land my entire life. My first job was parking planes and loading luggage at the Boston Logan Airport. So I started very much at the bottom of the aviation spectrum. And then I went on to become the first Black person in U.S. history to run a major private jet company. Then I went on to become a chief growth officer. So was part of the Wheels Up team that took that company public. We were the first aviation company to go public. I now serve on the board of XTI Aerospace, which we have a new aircraft coming out in a few years that will be a combination of a helicopter and private jet. Ooh. So that's my background. I'm an aviation girl.
That sounds cool. All right, Bob, I'm outnumbered on this call already. So let's just be clear. Bob Stewart forever has gone this way. And Stephanie, you might be the first guest that has shown up wearing the old school Apple plug-in headset. Yeah. So I'm clearly outnumbered due to our kindred spirits. I want to ask a question about aviation that's got nothing to do with anything. Why is it cheaper to book international travel from an international airline instead of one of the American-based airlines? Why can I fly for a third of the cost to the same place if I go on Turkish Airlines instead of Delta?
Because Turkey subsidized their airlines.
Okay. Is that the same with most other countries? And they don't. So that's why they charge us 3 times as much. Folks, here's your tip. If you're flying overseas, do not fly on an American-based airline. Look at the country you are flying to, and near it, you will probably get flights half the cost.
Chad, there's only 2 Canadian airlines, and aren't those like government backed, like all the way across the board?
Stephanie will probably know more than I do.
Yeah, you'll find with most airlines for most countries, especially if it's the flagship airline for that country, the government actually backs some of it as well. So the American airline, airline companies tend to have a little bit more of a challenge because that's not how our government works over here. So
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. Like from we'll take Turkish Airlines as an example. Why wouldn't Turkey want to help get people to Turkey? Right. I mean, that does make a lot of sense to me.
And all those others. Folks, there you go. There's your tip. I mean, Stephanie's going to give you way more important stuff to learn. Yet, if you get nothing from today's episode, next time you're flying somewhere overseas or international, look at the country you're going to's airline. It'll be cheaper. All right.
So I'm going to ask the first real question here because I'm fascinated by somebody that like came up in an industry and just, spent their entire career in the same industry from like boots on the ground.
She was 12 when she got the job, right?
Yeah, she must have been. But like literally, I don't, if there's a more entry level position in aviation than pulling the bags off of the plane, I don't know what it is, but can you just talk for a minute about kind of how living in the same industry had its advantages and maybe its disadvantages as you kind of rose through the ranks?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, nobody's ever asked me that question, so thank you for it.
Yay, Bob.
Yay, Bob. Bob doesn't need books.
That's right.
Crushing it, dude. Crushing it. So what I would say is, yes, you're right. Now, the great thing is the aviation industry is such a big industry. So there's so many facets to it. So I started off, yes, entry level in the airline side, but then I ended up in the private jet side, which is a completely different part. So there's, when you think about aerospace, right, you have defense. So some people they're just on the military side or the defense side. Then of course you've got commercial, which all of us know because we use it. And then there's the private aviation side as well. So and now we've got the newer part.
Which I want to know about someday. I just don't know about yet.
But your time's coming. I can feel it. But what's really interesting too now is there's another side of aviation that's really starting to get some momentum, which is more about the flying cars and the drones and all of that. So it's just a really fascinating industry. But that's how, Bob, I can be in one industry and be in it for so long because there's many facets to it that I've actually been a part of.
What's the transformation in the aerospace field that you've seen in your time? I mean, the power of flight was it, right? Yet what's the most amazing transformation you've seen since?
I think it's actually coming upon us right now. So for an example, in our space, there's a lot of talk about certification of the eVTOLs, which is basically the electric flying vehicles that will have a takeoff and landing. And so think of it as more like flying cars, right? So they'll fly short distances, but at least avoid the traffic. So they'll fly over versus you being in a car to get to. So that's a big part that's going on in the industry. Of course, we have drones, and drones they've been here for a while, but they are picking up a lot more momentum because companies like the Amazon or Target or what have you are starting to use drones to deliver packages, right, to your homes. Then you've got, on the defense side, there's, we start thinking about, let's say, fighter jets. There's different technology with AI. Do you need a fighter pilot? Can you use that, the AI technology to utilize certain kind of aircraft that are more for defense? And then the board that I'm on, the advisory board, we're looking at an aircraft that will have the takeoff and landing capacity of a helicopter, but yet still be a private jet. So what that means to a consumer is now you have a private jet that could land on your yard, let's say, because you don't have a runway, but you may have a big enough estate that we can take off and land there. So I believe the most exciting time, to your point, Chad, the taking off of aircraft was the biggest time, but I think we're actually getting ready to move into that next really big and exciting season for us as aviation.
And here I thought it was when they got rid of the smoking section and had better food. What do I know?
That was the time, depending on who you were, right? I definitely don't. I could not have been in that time where think about it, closed in, people smoking cigarettes like for 14-hour flights.
The first time, so I flew to Germany in 1993, and the first time when I did that, in the very back of the plane, there was a section in the back of the plane where people could smoke.
Yeah.
It was mind-blowing to me because on domestic flights, I don't know when that went out, in maybe the early 80s or something, or the mid 80s, that they couldn't. And so I don't have any recollection as a kid of being on a plane domestically that had smoke. But,
I was flying since I was 3 years old.
I don't know. My Aunt Barb also drove around with us kids in the back of the car with the windows rolled up smoking cigarettes. So I don't know how much different that was, I guess.
Okay, so we've got a woman who has transformed an industry single-handedly. We're just going to leave it at that and give you all the credit for every transformation that's happened in aerospace. Yet that's not why we have you here today, right? We could talk about it. We could be fascinated by it and all the transformations. We're talking to you about your new book, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. Folks, first of all, you can go to Stephanie's website, Stephanie Chung. Just like it sounds, it's spelled that way, stephaniechung.com. You can get the book there. Obviously, you can find every book on Amazon. I see that title, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. And I'm putting the emphasis on not. That's the word that is there. What do you mean?
Oh, thank you. So think about it this way. Right now, I always tell leaders, leadership today is incredibly complex. If we might separate the people part of it, right? So there's wars, there's tariffs, there's geopolitical stuff going on. You still have to retain top talent. We have a labor shortage. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on. So leaders as a whole have a really heavy job these days. On top of that, the people part of it is an additional lift that most people are just not been trained to deal with. So I always say, no matter what leader you are, if you are leading in today's world, you're probably not been trained to lead today's modern workforce. And here's why I say that. Right now, we've got 6 generations at work. That is unheard of. That's never happened before. So that means we have generation. Let's just look at all the generations. If you think of a boomer versus a Gen Z or a Zoomer, they think very differently. So 6 different generations. The average age of employees are anywhere from 16 to 75 years old right now. So each generation has a different perspective, different expectation, different work ethic. The whole thing goes on. On top of that, we have women as the majority of the world population, and that changes the dynamics at work because women see things differently, we communicate differently. Then on top of that, we have the LGBTQ plus community. On top of that, you may have colleagues that come from different cultures or they have a different worldview, right? And if you think of just our country, ethnically, right, the ethnic demographics are all changing. So that changes the dynamics. And then you may have people that you work with that are neurodiverse, or maybe they have disabilities. So the list goes on and on and on. So the fact of the matter is you as a leader are leading people who are not like each other, and they're most likely not like you. And so how do you actually now lead this team that you probably don't have much in common with? See, once upon a time, leadership back in the day, especially the older generation, leadership was about handing out some, task here and there, and then hiring people who looked and thought and worked exactly like you. Right. But now when you think of today's workforce, that's most likely not the case. They probably don't think like you or communicate like you or have the same background as you, so on and so forth. And so now you have to step back as a leader and go, wait a minute, how am I going to lead this team that I may have absolutely nothing in common with other than the fact that we work at the same company?
So it used to be managed by walking around was the number one leadership way. That does not work anymore because half the people aren't even working where you are, much less like you and all of that kind of stuff. So you mentioned to us earlier an acronym that's going to help us learn how to lead people who are not like us and just be a better leader, even for people who are like us. Let's talk about this acronym. Let's break it down. And I think that's where the body of this podcast goes.
Yeah, that sounds great. So first of all, I want to actually talk about, we've been talking about the subtitle of the book, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. The actual title is called Ally Leadership, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. And the reason why I bring that up, Chad, is only because that itself is an acronym, right? So Ally stands for, you need to be a leader who knows how to ask, listen, learn, and you take action. So that's the framework that I'm working with, right? Is I want leaders to realize like you need to be a leader who can do those basic things. And though it sounds simple, I could spend a whole podcast just talking about that, asking, listening, learning, and you taking action. Because if you're leading people who are not like you, nobody needs to know how you see the world, right? Because they're not like you. They see things differently. Now, the acronym that you're referring to, which is really the system that makes the ally process work, is called EARN. And EARN is EARN for your listeners. And I'll tell you what it stands for. So the E part of EARN is you have to be a leader who establishes an environment where you create a psychological safety enough where your people feel safe enough to share their thoughts and their ideas and challenge the status quo, which could mean challenging you as well, right? So you've got to establish that environment. A then stands for assure alignment. So everybody in the team needs to know, how does the company win? And then more importantly, how does what they do contribute to that win? So that's what the A is for, assure alignment. The R is for rally the troops. You've got to get your people excited about something bigger than their to-do list, right? So people follow a vision. They don't follow a to-do list. And then N stands for, I'm from aviation. You got to navigate, right? We got to know, how does the company win? Where's the company going? Why is the company going there? And by when are we going to get there? And when we hit turbulence, then what's the backup plan, right? When the rough air hits. So that's the EARN system. If leaders do that, they're already at a position of winning, because now you've got a group of people who don't necessarily think alike, communicate alike, have the same generation, same gender, et cetera. But now you can at least get them all on the same train, if you will, with the EARN system. And you set up a team where people feel safe enough to go, you know what, I hear what you're saying stuff, but I think we should do it this way instead. That's huge, right? And they know that they can connect the dots of, here's what I do and here's how I help the company win. You do just those two things, you already are going to have a team that's unstoppable. But
folks, there's a whole training program behind this as well. And you can find out more, stephaniechung.com/earn. Now, Bob, I always give you the first question. I want to put this question to you, Bob, and then that'll take us where we go. Stephanie has just shared with us the EARN, right, which is establish, assure, rally, and navigate. She also shared with us ally. And Stephanie, of course, that threw me off on the title of the book, because nobody puts the title small and the subtitle big.
Because the subtitle is like a really cool title, let's say.
Yeah, it's a really cool title. So, and she took ask, listen, learn, and then you take action. Bob, we probably will, knowing you and I, and quickly getting to know Stephanie here, we'll probably fill the whole podcast with one of the two acronyms. Do you want to go deeper, Bob, on ally, or do you want to go deeper on earn? Where should Stephanie be taking us?
Oh, man. Can we have her back? Like, if we go one way, could we have her back in the future and maybe go the other direction? Is that a possibility?
She's giving you a little love on that.
All right. Let's go to earn. Let's go to earn. And maybe I want to start with, let's just start at the top, establishing a safe environment. Because I think, look, I'm old enough that when I came into the workforce, you had a boss, you shut the hell up, you did what you were told, and so I guess, like, how do I start? Like, how do I start to establish a safe environment? Let's take it from the perspective of, maybe I haven't been the best leader of my group of people today, but I realize I want to be a better one.
Yes.
How do I start or what's how do I lay the groundwork for establishing a safe environment where people feel like they're
being valued and psychologally safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
I might be on the website. I might.
Yeah. So that it's such a good question, because it's funny. I was just talking to a CEO before I jumped on this call, and we were talking about this. The very first thing you want to do is to be vulnerable as a CEO. I want leaders to know leadership doesn't have to suck. You don't have to carry this big old heavy weight yourself. No one is expecting you to have all the answers. Back in the day, we did, right? Because, to your point, Bob, you were just told what to do. But that's not the workforce of today. They're all coming in with different talents, different gifts, the last thing they actually want is to be told what to do. They want to be able to utilize what they think they're bringing to the table, and help the company win as far as everybody else bringing something to the table as well. So I'll give you an example of one of the things I used to do when I ran $1 billion sales teams. Is the very first thing, Bob, that I would do is once we got our new quota, let's say we had a board meeting, everybody agreed this is going to be, the new quota, we got to bring in $1 billion. First thing I would do, Bob, is I would then meet with my sales team and sit down with them in front of a whiteboard and go, okay, guys, we just had a meeting with the board. They're looking for us to have a 20% increase. And here's the new number. And I could really use your help on how you think best, how we should what we can do to get there. So I'm being vulnerable. Now, most leaders will take, it's $1 billion. They'll go in their office and then create the plan and then kind of force feed it to everybody. Whereas my philosophy is do the reverse, right? Is to say, guys, listen, I could use your help on how we're going to get there. And so let's just, no ideas or bad ideas. Let's just start shouting them out right now. And so people start giving their thoughts and their ideas again, because these are people from different everything. Right? So I want their ideas. Did you know, Bob, that diverse teams are 70% more innovative? Because they don't think alike. They don't actually have the same background. Like, you want to use that to your advantage. So the very first thing a leader needs to do is just get rid of the cape, is what I always say. Stop coming in like the superhero. I want you to actually come in and utilize the differences of the team, because that is your competitive advantage. And the way that you do that is you humble yourself by first saying, you know what, guys, I could really use your help on this.
I think in a scenario like that, Stephanie, the team's bought in now. Like they're more bought in on a plan. Look, even if they threw all the ideas out and at the end of the day you grabbed one or two, but as a leader, you mainly, it's the exercise of them being involved look, you don't want to have them do everything and you throw all their ideas out and you're like, well, we're going to do it this way. I mean, right. But,
yeah.
But in some ways, just the exercise of being involved is as much a part of it as anything, because most of the people, something I found interesting over the years, a lot of people come into your organization with the baggage of the places they've been. Mm-hmm. Good and bad, I think. But I've been in environments like this where you lay this out to people and even still they're scared to give their opinion, right? And so it takes a warm-up process, I think, with a team where they really feel like you actually care about their input.
That's a great question. How do we start small, Stephanie, right? I mean, because maybe someone like me, you bring me into an organization, I got no hesitation. I'm going to shoot my mouth off, right? I'm like, oh, well, here's what I would do, right? In that situation. Yet there's going to be someone who's still testing the waters where they are. There's going to be that person that's been there for 20 years and has never really been asked this before. How do we start to build that trust? So we're showing this vulnerability. We're asking this question. Yet until they trust us, it doesn't matter how vulnerable we look. They'll just think, oh, you're weak. How do we give them the trust that it's a safe place?
Absolutely. So one of the things, there's two answers to that. By the way, love these questions, guys. So the very first thing you want to think about is I want leaders to always know this is not overly complicated, right? I literally say in the book, do not make this hard, because it's a matter of, if you have, the very first thing I'm going to challenge leaders to do is to make sure in your meeting, do you have different voices around the table? That's challenge number one for the leader, right? Because you can have, let me just say it this way, you can have a team that is ethnically diverse, but so maybe they all come from different cultures, but if they all think the same, because you've programmed them to think the same, act the same, work the same, then they're actually not that very diverse at all, right? You're not going to be able to use that competitiveness as the advantages that I mentioned. So the very first thing that a leader needs to do is to make sure that you've got diverse thoughts around the table. Then you have to make sure, now this is where you have to kind of really zone into your team. You now have to start making sure, well, who's always talking and who hardly ever talks? Who do I give my benefit of the doubt to? Who do I just give my doubt to? Right? Like, you, the leader, have to really start to own your stuff. So you've got to figure out, well, who around this table is not saying anything? And then how do I throw a bone there to say, hey, you know what, Chad, you know what, Chad, I just heard you. Thank you for your feedback, right? To your point, maybe you always share. But then I may go, Bob, I'd really be interested, Bob, to hear what do you think about this? So I'm going to force this a little bit, right? And Bob may say, well, and he'll say a couple things, especially if he's not used to being asked his opinion, right? So it may take a little bit for me to kind of get Bob there. I may even have to coach Bob before the meeting to say, listen, I'm inviting you to this meeting. I know typically you're not typically invited, but I really wanted you there because I think that you have some value that really the rest of the team as well as myself could benefit from. So
that's a really powerful, Stephanie, bringing people in to something that they haven't necessarily been a party to before with an objective that you want them to participate, I think is massively powerful. Yeah. I've got a kid on my team that I think came out of a company where it was like, you just did what the boss told you and that was it and you shut up. And he has this tendency to hold back or to like, like after the meeting, he'll come and grab me and be like, hey, I was thinking, and I'm like, why didn't you say that? And so I've actually done that where I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to have you come sit in on this thing. And I want you to share the part that you were telling me yesterday about this. And it's actually brought him out of his shell. Like he's got a newfound confidence. Maybe to Chad's point, he thinks I trust him because I've grabbed him and brought him into some environments that he was never a party to before.
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah, on accident, I think. I wasn't intentionally doing it that way. I was just like, hey, that was a really good thing you shared with me yesterday. To your point, Chad, I don't know. Like, I guess I've, enough freedom these days to feel like I can insert my opinions anywhere. And I have to remember, not some people don't operate that way or have been kind of beat down to the point where they don't feel like they've got that freedom.
So Bob's establishing that team culture there.
Yes.
Let's keep moving. While we could, right? I don't want to be, time's up on the episode and we got to establish. How does he now assure some of that alignment and keep that going?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do, whether I'm running a team or running a company, is to do walk-a-miles. And so what that means is everybody walks a mile in each other's shoes. So I'll give you as an example.
Bob has really nice shoes.
I can tell by the hat I'm looking at. Yeah, I like his hat too. So here's
tell her that I have a hat collection.
You have a hat collection?
At every corner in my house. My wife is somewhere nearby. Like her blood starts to boil whenever I start talking about my hats and shoes because they've taken over our house.
I'm going to give you a book and you send me one of your cool hats, Bob. Okay. But when we think about assure alignment, really what that means, so I'll give you an example. When I used to run one of the private jet companies, I would make sure that our pilots, whenever they would come in for recurrent training, that they also spent time with customer service. Right? I want you to sit down next to the customer service person, put one of their headphones on and listen to what the things they have to do in order to book a trip. Because then, and now all of a sudden I may have salespeople go sit down with finance, right? Because yes, you have a quota, you know what you're trying to sell, but you don't really necessarily know how does the business make money, right? So now all of a sudden what you do is I refuse to have an ignorant workforce. And the way that you do make sure that doesn't happen is, Chad, you make sure that everybody is aligned. And how they're aligned is walking a mile in each other's shoes. I need them to understand the business, not just their silo part of the business, but the entire business. So one of the things I always encourage executives to do or leaders to do is I say, go back to your company and ask 5 individuals these 3 questions. What business are we in? How does the business make money? And what is it that you do that helps the business win? 5 different people, you'll probably get 5 different answers. But at least you as the leader now know where there's misalignment. And now it's your job. If you get 5 different answers, that's you, leader. You need to look at yourself on that because you're the one that actually tells people what business we're in. That's your job, right? And isn't
the business almost always customer service? Like, shouldn't that almost always be the answer?
Well, maybe if that's your business, right? So I'll give you an example. So one of the teams that I ran, I remember saying to the sales team, because you would think the sales team would know what business we're in, right? It's like, what business are we in? How do we make money? So they're like, we make money when we hit our quota, which is a very typical answer for a sales team because there is some truth to that, right? But I'm like, well, how else do we make money? So yes, we make money if you sell a plane, got it. But how else do we make money? And they couldn't answer that question. Well, the truth is we make money from fuel. We make money from pilot insurance. We make money from hangar insurance. We make money a whole lot of different ways, but they didn't know that. Now, once you equip them to know that, not just I know my quota, but I actually know how the business works and I know how we make money. Now I don't just have salespeople, I have business executives. And now when they go to negotiate with a client or a prospect, they're set up in a much better position. Because if they understand how the business makes money, if the client says, well, I'd like a 20% discount, well, they already know, well, that's not going to work, right? They already know because they understand how the business works. And instead of them taking it to finance and making finance want to like pull their hair out, right? They can cut all that off and say, well, Mr. So-and-so, the 20% doesn't work. We're not a nonprofit. So here's what we can do is let's talk about what it is that we've put on the table that you no longer need so we can pull the pricing down to get more into your budget right now because you know how the business works. So that is an example of how you can assure alignment is make sure that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing.
Chad, that's so good. Stephanie, one of the most impactful things our company Place, and I do have some hats around here. So
thank you.
But we've been around for 5 years, and the roots of our company go much, much deeper, but 6 years now, maybe in those 6 years, the most impactful thing I've ever seen our co-founder do is he took our development staff one time and he made them sit and pair up with somebody on the customer service team because they write the code that these guys go out and support. And every day as we get customers saying, hey, this, or hey, something wrong here, or he wanted the developers to see the impact to our customer of, that little bug that, no big, to the developers, no big deal. We can fix it right away. But had it not ever been there, those 50 calls that came into those frontline people that have to deal with our customers wouldn't happen. I'm telling you, the work those guys and gals put out over the next, 2 years, let's call it, was just a different level of work because they'd seen the impact of their work on the rest of their colleagues, who, by the way, they right? They never meant to ship bad code or have that bug come up or whatever. But man, that alignment from that one, I think we did it for a week where they rolled shifts with their teammates. It was massively powerful.
It's a game changer. And if companies would just do that, right? And if you do that for all, you're talking about 2 divisions that came together. If you put all your divisions and that was just the way that we do business, now all of a sudden, plus when something goes wrong, everybody knows to okay, I'm going to help, right? Because you're not enemies or silos. You're actually all in this together. So I'm not surprised to hear that it really made such an impact because it's so incredibly important. And yet most companies and most leaders don't do this at all. And that costs you no money to do that.
Okay. We're talking with Stephanie Chung. You can check it out at stephaniechung.com. You can get a copy of her book.
I'm jealous I didn't get a book. I'm also jealous of anybody, Stephanie, that has their full name as their website URL.
Don't start on that one, Bob Stewart. I got a time limit to work with here, Bob. All right. stephaniechung.com, where you can find her book, Allied Leadership, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. You can also go to stephaniechung.com/earn. If you want to dive deeper into the concepts we're talking about right here, right now, we're giving you just the tip of the iceberg stuff that Stephanie goes over. We've talked about establishing a team culture. We've talked about assuring alignment so everyone knows what's going on and where they fit in the puzzle. Next up in your EARN acronym, let's take 2 or 3 minutes. What about rallying your team around a shared vision?
You know what? That one I can do in very quick format here.
Bob's going to ask a question and it's going to turn into 3 minutes.
Take me off the rails. Yeah, Bob and I, we have something going here. So yes, rallying the troops. So the biggest thing that I would say is leaders sometimes are so running around with their hair on fire that they don't do the basics. And the basic is you have to be the person painting the vision. People need to know where are we going, why are we going, what are we doing? So that's the job of the leader is get people excited. Because if you have a team that is safe enough, they feel safe enough to challenge the status quo, share their thoughts and ideas. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I actually am aligned. I know how the business runs. Now you start getting them excited about what's the mission? Why does the company even exist? What's the purpose here? You get them excited about that, then you really have an unstoppable team, truly, right? So really when I say rally the troops, it just means paint them a picture so that they have something other than their to-do list to follow. They actually understand why does the company here and what is it that they do that contributes to helping the company win.
Stephanie, having been somebody that thought they were doing a decent job of this, but in hindsight realizes they weren't, one piece of advice I would give there maybe to some is you probably have to do it more than you think. Like some of us think I'm doing this already. And if we went and asked 10 of our people, they'd be like, I don't know. I think I know why we do this every day. Right. But so you end up having to do it more than you think, or maybe that you even feel comfortable. Then you're like, you just, I don't know. Sometimes you'll say the thing the same way or a slightly different way for the 8th time. And that's what will resonate with that one person on your team that you really needed bought in. They just didn't hear it for whatever reason the first 7 times.
Yeah. And I would say too, Bob, also do it different ways, right? Because some people may like see it in an email and they get it. Somebody may need to hear it. Somebody you may need to do, a whole phone tree. Like they're just, I agree with you. You're going to do it to a point where you feel nauseous. You're like, how do they not get it? I've said it like 70,000 times, right? Exactly. But what I would just encourage is like, you may do it 70,000, say it 70,000 times, and you may have to do it in 70 different thousand formats, right? So that you meet them where they're at, because some people learn differently. But yeah, that's great advice, Bob. Great advice.
Okay. What do we, Chad? We got like auditory learners, visual, kinesthetic, which I think they need to feel it and touch it, right?
Correct. And there's a 4th I can't think of that they've added to the list. And then they've said, and everybody really has all 4 parts, even though they've attempted to say, oh, you're an auditory or everybody has all 4 because we learn different things differently.
Just bring it often from lots of different angles.
Again and again. Yes. All right. So we've established the team culture so people can be seen, heard, felt safe. We've assured alignment so they know how they're helping the plane actually get where it's going in your situation. We've rallied the team. Yay, go team, right? The last is the navigate.
You guys both just did like pom-pom fists.
Nobody can see us, thank God, right?
I'll let him know what you guys are up to.
The last one is navigate the toughest leadership challenges with strategic precision. Talk to us. Let's wrap this up. 2-3 minutes on this topic of navigating leadership challenges for the team.
Yeah. One of the things in the book, I actually call it navigate the narrows. And narrows, meaning, think of it like when you're parking a car, if you're parallel parking, a lot of it is just little steps back and forth, right? In order to get that car parallel parked. The same is true for navigation. In my world, in aviation, there is not a pilot on the planet that would show up on the plane and just go, you know what, I don't know where I'm going today, but let's all get in, right? Like, it doesn't work that way, right? They need to know, where am I going? How am I going to get there? When am I going to get there? And what are the things that I may have to deal with on my way there? That's basic in aviation. And what I want to do is encourage leaders to make that basic in your organization as well. We're in an industry where we can't make mistakes, right? Because there truly is life and death at hand. But if you literally function that way, where everybody, from a navigation perspective, the team needs to know, here's where we're going. Here's why we're going. A lot of times leaders don't tell that part. Here's where we're going, but it's like, well, why are we going there, right? So explain that part. When are we going to get there, right? How are we going to get there? It just seems so basic. But again, I really want leaders to not make this hard. Stop and say it more than you care to, so that the team knows why we're going there and what are we hoping to get accomplished. So I'll give you an example. When we came out of the recession in 2008, and during the recession, people were turning back private jets. In the middle of a recession, you don't need a private jet, right? So now we've got to figure out, okay, when we get out of this recession, who do we want to be as a company? And the CEO that I was working for at the time was really clear on, when we come out of this, we want to be the best company as far as just being easy to do business with. Our customers feel like we're a part of their family, right? And so we were really, really focused on not acquiring new customers as much as just retaining the current customers that we had. Now, that said, we needed to reorganize the entire organization to make sure that we truly were customer centric. Because when we were looking at ourselves from the outside looking in, we're like, we're a little clunky. We're not easy to do business with. So we had to reset the whole organization while we were in the middle of this recession. But the why that was important is, I remember one of the things, if we're focused on not so much acquiring new customers, but retaining current customers, then we've got to make sure that we get our renewals up. And so I was tasked to be head of this project. And so it was a company-wide project. And I was like, okay, so we're going to focus on getting our renewals up to X percentage. And so what does that actually mean? So now you start bringing the whole organization into it. And I remember we nicknamed it. We nicknamed it Fuel the Renewal, right? It was something short and catchy everybody could understand. And I actually got the idea from visiting my cousin in West Point. And West Point, if you're there and they have a game getting ready to go on with Navy, they're like, beat Navy. That's all they say, right? So I was like, I like this idea. So in the organization, you could walk throughout the whole building, all the different floors, and you would hear Fuel the Renewal. But what that meant was it wasn't just about we're going to renew. Now it's, okay, well, sales, what does that mean to you? Pilots, what does that mean to you? So I'll give you an example. Sales is looking at a contract saying, okay, we're going to renew this person. But the pilot doesn't know that we're renewing this person. And the pilot's actually spending most of the time with the customer, right? The plane locks those doors shut. It's just them and the pilot. And so what we wanted to do was teach the pilot, okay, this person's up for renewal. And so here's what we want you to add into your script. So instead of just saying, hey, welcome aboard and doing your safety instructions, you could say something like, you know what, Bob, listen, I just wanted to say I really enjoy flying you. I know that you're up for renewal and that you could go anywhere, but I really enjoyed flying you and your family. And so if there's anything that we could do to make this more pleasant for you, let me know, but I sure would miss flying you, right? So now all of a sudden the pilot's involved. It's not just sales trying to renew the contract. The pilot now has an opportunity. Every single touch point that the customer has is now part of this Fuel the Renewal, right? Finance, if you're giving an invoice, we'll say on there, say something in those, you got space, say something. We really appreciate your business. We know you're up for renewal, whatever. That's how you get the entire organization focused. So that's how you're navigating the stuff that's important, by teaming up and making sure the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. But you're making sure that now the company knows, why are we doing this? And when are we going to do it? And how are we going to do it? So it's really just giving them the details that sometimes we tend not to fill the blanks in for the employees.
I think sometimes Chad, we talk about this all the time. Like sometimes the smartest, the aha ideas are just so simple that you're like, why don't I use this everywhere in my life? Like that, naming that thing Fuel the Renewal, just that one thing, which like in hindsight, like, yeah, duh, like giving it a name so we all kind of can rally around it. And it's a mantra that's obvious, but we don't do it enough. It's an no duh, but why haven't I done this? Why haven't I leveraged this more in my life for so many things? I don't know.
That's right.
Bob, we're going to name this one Win, Make, Give, right? People, win, make, give. Let me hear you out there. Win, make, give. You're not hearing along. I can't hear them, Bob.
I'm not doing the pom-pom fists, you guys. I'm not doing it.
We've named it. We want you folks to be winning, making, and then therefore giving. That's what we're here to talk about. We've been talking with Stephanie Chung today. I think if you listened to her as she talked about the EARN acronym, you also heard her talking about asking, listening, right? And taking the action. She took us through Ally at the same time as she took us through EARN. If you want more on it, go to stephaniechung.com where you can find the book and you can find the program she's offering. Stephanie, we appreciate you taking the time, joining us today, sharing, having some fun with it. May all your skies be clear of turbulence moving forward. Folks, we want you to make sure you're win making and giving, just as we had said. And as always, we want to make sure that you also do good.